Now we will move forward towards problems of communication. Communication problem occur due to convention of meaning, perception of reality, values, attitude, and opinions. Basically, these are the reasons due to which miscommunication occurs. We will discuss each one by one. Number one is conventions of meaning. A fundamental principle of communication is that the symbols the sender uses to communicate message must have essentially the same meaning in both the sender's and receiver's minds. You can never assume that the message in your mind will be perfectly transmitted to your receiver, because the world is littered with errors, sometimes humorous, often costly, as a result of differences in semantic understanding. So, in order to understand the semantic problems, here is a communication triangle. In this view, a symbol is a sign for something that exists in reality. Symbols are the signs for things that exist. Connections between the signs and their reference are unique to each individual. Each individual have different experience and connection between the symbol and the reality. Each individual takes this symbol for different meanings and different interpretations. The closer the common experiences surrounding the symbol and their things that is reference in the minds of sender and receiver, the closer the level of understanding. That is, if you want to increase the level of understanding, you have to increase the connection between the common experiences of both sender and receiver. So both sender and receiver should have same experiences for the same symbol. Your name is really a symbol, or a word is only a symbol of you, or a word for you that represents you. Only through common experience is a connection made between the symbol or a word attached to you and the person you are in reality. Only the closer connection made between your name and person can bring a exact idea of who you are. So, for example, many acronyms have became accepted into standard English and are generally understood by most people, such as laser. Laser is not a word, but it is nowadays taken as a word. It is basically an acronym of light amplification for stimulated emission of radiation. But nowadays it is usually is so much accepted in our community that we just use the word laser by assuming that the many people know about the concept and work of and purpose of and function of laser. So here the common experiences surrounding this symbol is increased, so level of understanding is also increased. Miscommunication occurs when the sender and receiver have different meanings for the symbol used. So, in order to avoid misunderstanding, we have to increase the understanding of meanings of the symbol. Then we here we have um, two dimensions of meanings for to a word. Number one is denotations, and number two is connotations. A denotation is usually the dictionary definition of a word, and a connotation is implication of a word or a suggestion separate from the usual definition. So, denotations, most people agree on denotative meanings. It often is the dictionary definition. Denotative meanings inform the receiver, naming objects, people, or events without indicating positive or negative qualities. Such words as car, desk, book, house, and water convey denotative meanings, provided, of course, that the communicators are using the same language and provided that the receiver has a similar understanding of the context in which the word is used. Then is connotations. In order to In addition to the more literal denotative meanings, some words have connotative meanings that arouse qualitative judgments and the personal reactions. So to communicate effectively, connotative meaning is what is the secondary or culturally assigned and narrowly accepted meaning of the same word or expressions. A few words are taken differently in uh, few cultures and differently in other cultures. So to communicate effectively, you must be aware of the connotative meanings of the words, so that you cannot offend anyone, so that you make the communication more effective, so that your ideas, your communication, your words are easily understandable, and you get the desired result of the communication. So to communicate effectively, you must be aware of the connotative meanings of your words, and you must realize that some people have their own idiosyncratic meanings, because of their experiences and backgrounds. Thus, you should choose your language carefully and consider both its denotations and its connotations to convey the exact idea you want to achieve, you want to deliver, and to achieve your desired results. So you have to improve this communication, your differences between perception, symbol and its meaning or its reality, by having the closer the common experiences. Number two is perception of reality. A complex, infinite, and continuously changing, the material world provides a special reality to each individual. Also, human beings' sensory perceptions, touch, sight, hearing, smell, taste, are limited, and each person's mental filter is unique. Every person, whether they are grown up in the same environment, same ethnic background, same home, family, but their mental filter is different. So you can never eliminate the factor of perception of reality, but we can work on this to eliminate the level of misunderstanding while communicating, or level of miscommunication, so that in order to achieve the desired results. Basically, communication problems in perception of reality are based on these things. We have to understand these terms for perception, understanding the perception of reality problem of communication. Number one is abstracting. Abstracting is what? Focusing on some details and omitting others is a process called abstracting. In countless examples, abstracting is necessary. However, you should be cautious about slanted statements. So here, two things you should be careful. Number one, necessary and desirable abstracts. Whether you write or speak, you are usually limited by time, expense, space, or purpose. So you need to select the facts that are pertinent to accomplish your purpose, and omit the rest for to communicate well. Then is slanted statements. Uh, Conscious communicators, both senders and receivers of messages, should try to determine whether the facts they are acquainted with, the facts they know, which are truly representative or whole or not. So, slanting is unfair in factual reporting. For example, the news reporter is taught to include quoted statements in context and avoid expressions of personal approval or disapproval of the persons. A newscaster cannot give a personal approval or disapproval, or objects or of objects or person or occurrences being described. So newscasters should be very neutral. So they have to give the quoted statement. So next is inferring. Conclusions by reasoning from evidence or premises are called inferences. Inferences are conclusions drawn from evidence. So every day, most of us find it necessary to act on some inferences. We make assumptions and draw conclusions, even though we are not able to immediately verify the evidence. So some inferences are both necessary and desirable. So um, uh, but others inferences are risky and even dangerous. So Few are necessary desirable inferences are for business and professional people. Inferences are essentially in analyzing material, solving problems and planning procedures. System analysts, marketing specialists, advertisers, architects, engineers, designers and numerous others. When we base our inferences on direct observation or on reasonable evidence, they are likely to quite dependable. But even so, there are disappointing expectations. Conclusions we make about things we have not observed directly can often be untrue. Then there are risks of inferences. As intelligent communicators, we must realize that inferences may be incorrect or unreliable and anticipate the risk before acting on them. Suppose there is a personal manager, HR manager, who noticed that Ali is not Ali, who is new graduate trainee, has been staggering into his office every day for the past week. So manager might infer the trainee has some health problem or other problems or bad habits. So, but if the reason for the unsteady movement of the presence of that of any disease or health, the manager would be wrong to assume uh, like he is having a bad habit of drugs or etc. So always get the facts before taking action. We should not draw conclusion very quickly. You can have assumptions, but you verify the assumptions, get the facts before taking any action. So third one is values. Okay, before that is you see also the problem of illusion. Here you can see that in this triangle, you won't if you stare at this triangle, you will see it is a three-dimensional triangle and which is standing on a surface. In the other side you see it is a flat triangle. Sometimes it is standing triangle, sometimes flat. So it is just an illusion. No, it's illusion of reality is different from the way we are seeing at this picture. This picture is different from the way we are seeing this picture. Maybe we are saying that this is a person with broad shoulder and chest, and here it's a hand of the person, but in reality it's not that. These all pictures are illusion of the picture is different to the from the reality. It might be this is a container, or this is just showing up a lot of books and all here, but it's not in reality. It is just giving a illusion of this of that. Then this is also illusion. Whatever it is, it depends on the person, on the viewer, how they see at this picture. It's an illusion of a goat or a cow, but it is just a mountain with snow. You can have an illusion of the goat's egg or cow here. Third is values, attitudes, and opinions. A receiver's attitude towards a message can determine whether it is accepted, rejected, distorted, or avoided. Communication effectiveness is influenced also by the values, attitudes, and opinions of the communicators have in their mental filters. People react favorably when the message they receive agrees with their views towards the information, the facts, and the sender. Communication problems involving values, attitudes, and opinions. Receivers' views of the information presented will affect their response, which could be what the sender desires or just the opposite. So it could be favorable or unfavorable information, inadequate or incorrect information, or closed minds. Favorable or unfavorable information. The effective communicator considers the receivers and whenever possible emphasizes the points to the receiver will regard as a favorable or beneficial. Receivers also often react to unfavorable information by rejecting, distorting, or avoiding it. Inadequate and incorrect information usually and occasionally people react according to their attitudes towards a situation rather than to the facts. For example, a customer must be happy over an adjustment that a company extended, but angry when learning that someone else received a better deal for what the customer assumed for to be the same circumstances assumed, but perhaps wrongly assumed. So this customer may have incomplete and incorrect information. So this also gives a miscommunication regarding attitudes. Regarding values, attitudes, and opinions, we can have another, you can say, another situation, that is closed mind. Some people hold rigid views on certain subjects. These people do not consider facts or additional information and maintain their rigid views regardless of the circumstances. Whatever circumstances they are just stick to their point of views, and rigid views. So such a closed minded person are very difficult to communicate with, and often you cannot communicate with that person at all. Dealing with such person, you may have to resort to a communicator or a court of law to resolve disputes. So these are the challenges based on the differences in values, attitudes, and opinions. Then credibility of sender also matters. Credibility in the sender is important in getting a favorable reaction. uh, if the recipient if the recipient considers a sender as credible and is worthy in the eyes of the receiver, then there is the chances of getting a favorable reaction increases with the increase in sender's credibility. Often people react more according to their attitude towards the source of information rather than to information itself. They react to who is speaking, who is writing. They respond according to the sender's profile, sender's credibility, rather than the information or content itself. So a strong Democrat will more likely accept an idea from another Democrat than the same idea from a other uh, mm, s- uh, political orientation. So in like if we are if a student say gives you some information, if students give you some news, then you would react differently uh, on the same content. If the same content is delivered to you, is communicated to you by your teacher, you will react differently because the credibility of teacher in your views is higher than your classmate or your colleague. So sender's credibility also matters in getting a favorable reaction. So these are the problems of communication which can be overcome by increasing the connection, by making more closer understandings, and by we have studied in communication triangle that by increasing the common experiences. Few other circumstances are there in which affect the other than these which affect the attitudes, opinions, and responses. Earlier circumstances were: number one, favorable or unfavorable information; inadequate or incorrect information; closed-minded people; sender's credibility. Other circumstances are when personal, business, or environmental stresses occur. Attitude towards the messages may be affected, regardless of whatever who is the sender, who is the receiver. On a day when personal problems seem overwhelming, a communicator's message may seem gloomy or uncooperative. So, life stresses affect our ability to send effective messages, color our responses, and when we receive them. So sensitivity to your own state of mind as well as uh, to that of your receiver helps you to communicate your messages in a positive way. So this was all about today's lecture. I hope you have understood the lecture. At the end of lecture we will have a discussion when you will complete this video lecture. Hope you understood. Give me a feedback if you have any question, ask in the live class. Have a good day. Take care. Allah Hafiz.